Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching us. Today I'm with dear Maja Wismer. Thank you, Maja, for coming, for joining me for the Archive of Emotions of this video broadcasting series. And it's very important for me to talk about our inner questions, how we are living our lives, and especially in the context of the exhibition Post-Truth, Violence and Anger, but especially in this Archive of Emotions, I invited people from the cultural scene, artists and institution representatives, and you are also the representative of the house. Where are we? Kunstmuseum Basel, Gegenwart. And you are you happy? First of all, first question, because you just started in this position a couple of months ago. How is it going for you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Mm-hmm. It actually does feel like the first official welcoming moment for me. Mm-hmm. So it's great fun to have you as an exhibiting artist in this institution doing that. This is great. I appreciate it. Well, I'm well. I have a home and I have work. So I think I'm doing quite well. It's of course it's a very peculiar situation to start working in a position where one is used to work with publics, with audiences, with public moments, with meeting, with talking, with real life, with physical encounters, with drinks, with getting together, getting to know better, seeing works, visiting artists in their studios, which I was able to do with you, luckily, but still, it's a peculiar moment. On the other side, since the program, so to speak, is set through fall, I also feel quite privileged to get some months to bring forward my projects and actually really invest a lot of energy in planning for the coming years. So, yeah, I guess I'm well, yeah.
One of the main questions that I would like to talk with you is that generally people who never worked in the cultural scene, in a cultural institution, they don't know actually what's happening behind of the walls. Well, how is the preparation of a show? I mean, there are so many people involved inside of it, so many conversations, dialogues, emails, research, etc. And I mean, I believe always there are two types of working. One is the process is really important and the result is not that important. It's like sports, you know. And there are also some types of work that the process is like nobody knows, the result is important. And I believe art, what we are doing, is like that. It's result oriented, and people who come to visit the shows, they have no idea what happened in the process. And sometimes, as I talk in the 4th chapter in this in the book, sometimes when we are making, I don't know, let's say when we work about difficult topics in the exhibitions, and some spectators who never made a research about the show or about the artist or about the process, they can easily attack us. You know what I mean? And maybe let's start with what's happening in the preparation of an exhibition. Maybe it's an important thing to share with the audience first.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, the complexities are one of the big challenges for me. I can only speak for myself. Working in an institution like Kunstmuseum Basel is to resist to not being eaten up by the processes, to not have your ideas become just one component in a whole line of bureaucracy. So I'm actually, when you're asking how are you, I'm fine, I'm well, but I'm still finding a way, in the process of finding a way on how to protect the productive time, the idea time, the deepening time, the being with artists ideas, because the machine, the institution is gigantic. And so that is a struggle I'm in, and it's also a struggle that I guess I and my colleagues are having 4 artists we're working with. So it's also part of my task to sort of mediate this encounter between artist and institution as productive as possible in order to have an exciting exhibition at the end of the day. But I'm actually also very interested, because I have to add, because we are such a big institutions and processes are, long. This is, we plan 3-4 years ahead of time. So I'm really interested in finding ways of sort of sharing productive moments in between. And I could use the management language milestones along the way to raise the awareness of our work, actually. And I think when I wasn't so involved in working with you because the project was already scheduled when I came. But when working with contemporary artists, the process is quite different from when working with the collection, let's say. And I'm actually now the first head of the Department of Art after 1960 / contemporary art. So my predecessors were responsible for this building where we are in right now exclusively, but I'm also responsible for the collection which begins after 1960, and I think we can talk maybe later in the year on why this 1960 might be irrelevant or not, but coming back to your questions, when working with dead artists, say, with history, it's quite a different process. But nevertheless, I think in both alleys, I'm really interested in finding ways of sharing. And I think this archive of emotions actually quite fits in that concept, and also what you've been suggesting for our the LED typeface on the building of the new museum. This is talking, #this is talking. So I really think that we should maybe let go also of seeing the exhibition as the final product.
Totally. It's still a process. I mean, our job with an exhibition, it doesn't stop when it's like open to public. It also continues. Because it's a moment that the dialogue starts with the public. And most of them, maybe they are not directly coming us, asking us their questions. They prefer to make their own evocations in their minds, projections. But there are also a couple of people they are really interested to get to know. They write emails, they want to know what's really the story behind, and then it can even go to somewhere super interesting, or also sometimes can be very, very negative. Like, for example, with all these projects, the museums are open since 2 days, but even though, I wanted to adapt to the corona situations, and we had this other project, we did the live tours and etc., I received maybe 80% incredibly good feedback from all over the world, from USA to China from Turkey. Seriously, it was really blessing. But at the same time, I received catastrophic attacks. However, I think judgment, it's not only in the art. Judging something without enough information is something very easy to do. And we all do that sometimes, because sometimes it touches to a wound inside of us. And so let's talk about a little bit maybe artist's position in the society that I also talk in this conversation. I believe artists They are people at the border of our commune vision. Artists, scientists, they are people, they work with intuitions and thinking. I always try to say this sentence, we try to make the unknown partially known unknown. And when we are doing that, sometimes we can even cross borders of the rules of the society, of the norms, what people call maybe normal. But also, this is our duty to update this society a little bit. I mean, I speak very big things right now, but this is what I believe at the same time. I have to share my position, my artistic position, what I believe because otherwise my works wouldn't be, I don't know. It's a big topic, but however, let's come back. Artists, they might sometimes cross borders of people's comfort zone. And in that moment, the relationship between artists and institutions should be very strong to each other, right? And I don't know, have you ever had or experienced any this crossing border or comfort zone situation with any exhibition or in your experiences before? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I agree. I share your definition of an artist's role in society, at least of a living artist, I guess, in a lived society. Absolutely. This is also why I would never want to live in a society without artists or art. It's I totally need this shift of perspective, the stepping back of norms, as you call them. It can be just tiny shifts. Really think around, turn your head around. Just a greater awareness of what is happening. And I also studied Western philosophy, and I quite struggled too, because you could say that sort of a shift of perspective or a deeper understanding can also be gained from pure theory, but I really need this, or space and materiality. And of course there's a lot of immaterial art, but still there's moments to encounter this art maybe. So I really need a physical experience of this shift of perspective. So to agree with your definition of what the role of artists in society could be, but now I lost your actual question. Actually,
it was like we when we are get out of the comfort zone,
right?
And maybe sometimes the general ethics of the society with our works to point something that people they refuse to see, or they don't want to see, I don't know, or they never saw.
Right.
And so my question was, have you ever experienced any situation like that in an exhibition or with an artist or a close artist or friends of yours who had certain experiences?
Yeah. Well, I can't recall a situation that was truly provoking. Oh yes, there was one incident actually. I don't know how many years ago, but I used to be an intern and then an assistant at Kunsthaus Glarus. And we had a group show, and I sort of was recruited by Daniel Baumann so we curated this in team. And there was one contribution by, at the time, a collective, also friends of mine. It's this group of artists around Provence magazine, which you might know. And they reprinted in postcard format the diary, the private notes, private notes of a Geneva prostitute who has quite been researched about, and I think she might even have self-published those notes. So what it basically was little cards, a listing, like a database on her clients. and their preferences and etc. And so that was, there were moments in this exhibition in the Glarus context where people were provoked, yes, that was something. And then I'm not sure how I reacted actually, I can't recall right now, maybe whatever, freedom of speech or different norms or whatever, I don't know what I said, but in my experience in working with artists, and especially when there's a performative moment involved, there's always this moment when you have to let go of control, and it's just, you have to trust the relationship maybe you established with the artist, the work of course, the moment, the audience, and be curious about what's happening. And I've experienced that a couple of times, and and I'm actually quite eager to re-experience this moment, because it's just really refreshing and eye-opening and awakening to, and it's such a satisfying moment to be within an audience in a way and let go.
And here I would like to make a entre parenthèses one question, and then we can continue about the art and our artist's role, etc. But here I have one question. When we look at at Fundación Basel or wherever we go, I mean, we can see in the art history artists who were angry, or they were into violence, or they experienced violence. They were difficult people to work with, and this anger or this violent inside of the artist, it becomes something. It's my observation. Becomes something very interesting when the artist is dead. But when it comes to working with the living artists who are super angry or very aggressive or attacking, who has a very different way of working with, this is my observation, but in the 21st century, these artists, do they have a space? Because I don't know. I have the feeling that we are in a weird direction, because artists right now, they don't even talk about art that much. I mean, we are talking about art, but there are these rules that nobody talks about. These rules that you have to be gentle, you have to work on your network, or you have to be diplomatic. There is a little bit. I mean, this is really what I believe. There is this a little bit auto-censor when it comes to showing your character or your anger. You have to be a nice artist. Or do you think I'd make a mistake here?
Well, I agree. There is certainly, we are in highly diplomatic moment of history, especially when it comes to artists. You have to, be adaptive. You have to present well. You have to be eloquative. You have to, etc., etc. But I don't know about the angry artists. Yeah, to me that is kind of a 20th century myth, Western myth. But then I'm pretty sure they are still around. Maybe they have someone helping them, assisting them, doing the talking for them.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you can allow yourself probably to behave like that when you've reached a certain moment in your career. And there are some people that are coming to mind, I think. And then you mentioned the keyword violence, which is also part of the title of your book. I mean, violence is so destructive, right? I see certain, let's say, maybe aggressions also towards when when it comes back to institutions, I mean, who is in, who is out, who has been in, who has, who has been left out. I see, but I wouldn't call it violence so much. It's more like expectations, strong expectations, outspoken expectations. And one nice component about this being such a language-driven moment is also that there are so many people who are articulating so well what has been missing, say, for example. Does that make sense too?
Yeah. And also there is a difference between violence and provocation, of course. Yeah. We shouldn't mix them.
Yeah.
We shouldn't mix them. And maybe let's come back a little bit to the main question that people from a little bit outside of the art field, they might consider that we live in a bubble.
Yeah.
And do we really live in a bubble? I don't think so. I don't believe in that. I really don't believe in that. There might be really, there might be some artworks very difficult to read, to understand, but it's also okay. The process of questioning to try to understand it, it's already something. And, but what do you think about this tag that contemporary art is actually a bubble? That's,
Well,
and we are next to a bubble.
We are next to a bubble. Well, I think as any other field of expertise, it's nice to talk to your own community, however diverse they are within this community, but it's nice to belong in a way.
Of course.
And to be able to speak
to be
about
understood.
references, to be understood, I as a curator, to place my work in a certain line of history maybe, or a certain culture, let's say, or within a network that can read what I do and actually understands the impetus. And so that I find a positive factor about maybe the bubble. But on the other hand,
maybe it's a protection zone instead of a bubble. Maybe it's like a protection zone, that comfort, that you feel understood until certain distance.
And also challenged, right?
Of course.
I mean, those are the people who measure
who
your
criticize,
output.
Who with an understanding. Because also there is a really constructive criticism, and there is also out of the blue criticism. That it's also very visible in the criticism.
Yeah.
When you are really master of what you are doing, I believe. You immediately understand in 2 seconds if it's a constructed or not. Because it's a question of resonation.
Yeah.
But
I, as a representative of a public art institution, I'm super interested in talking about art or in experiencing art together with people who may be in other bubbles. I find that super enriching to be in a show with people who have other fields of expertise, and to then maybe find a new ground. Or this is the reason also why I think I work in a public art institution. I've always really enjoyed exchange with curious audiences, and the ones who want to talk about art that come to museums are curious. What better than curious people, really?
Of course.
So that is something I absolutely cherish. But I really value both very much, and I deeply believe that if we only speak to many different bubbles, then maybe the art content becomes a bit wobbly.
Yeah. I really believe that the best way of dealing with the post-truth is telling the truth, first of all, but also this telling the truth, it shouldn't be like a monologue. It should be also a dialogue. That's why also I wanted to do this archive of emotions, and to have a dialogue, because I speak here my thoughts, but at the same time it's important to dig these things that I try to share here with people. Okay, we said this dialogue is very important, but I would like to come back to the institutional position. I really believe in the century that we are living. It is very necessary that institutions should have a political position, but at the same time, it is something more or less not happening at all. Because of course, as again, behind of the walls, there are so many things that are happening. You have to be the bridge between oppositions, between people. There is a money involved inside, there is, I don't know, artists involved, many different ideas involved, and it's very difficult to have a political position. And instead of that, I'm guessing in your position you have to be very diplomatic. But what do you think about that? Because I believe art has a culture, has a giant influence in the society, but at the same time, if we don't have we don't show a certain position, it's like you are not making a point, in the sentence. It's just the sentence stays half. What do you think about that?
I have to be diplomatic. Yeah, that is true. But that, I think also the exciting part about diplomacy, which is talking.
Yeah.
and lobbying for my interests, really, and by doing so, enabling certain moments, and I agree that let's call it political attitude, political standpoint is crucial. But it's not that you. We are such a big institution. You can't just go out and say I'm left or right. Sure. That is just too banal on that level, and maybe also not doing justice to the history of the institution. And I see my political work in really working with the collection. And it's not super fancy and glitzy, but it's slow, but it's my big aim to really work on the permanent collection and the narratives that we're telling with this collection, and just really making sure that it's diverse, for example, or that it's including side narratives, or that it's talking about art history from today's perspective.
Yes.
And that is, I think, my political work.
Yeah, I totally believe that the best way to show a political position is changing the collection, like not changing, but adding a new perspective inside of that. Of course, I don't expect from an institution to say, hey, we are left-wing and etc. But also already changing the collection is already something super important, like giving much more space to women artists, LGBTQ plus non-binary artists, or POC, or I don't know. These are also different bubbles that we have to bring on the table to dialogue everything, and the best way to initiate it is changing the collection. I believe you use the word of history, like I believe there is this weight of the almost 400 years of Kunstmuseum history behind of that. This is something I believe very interesting, but at the same time, I believe, it's not a criticism, it's just like I'm out loud thinking. I believe, of course, the history is extremely important, but at the same time, these institutions has the responsibility of maybe the history of taking care of the history is 50% of the job, but the other 50% is making the history right now. So, I believe this balance shouldn't be swollen by this almost 400 years old history of the museum. And also, I believe this the weight of this giant reputation, worldwide reputation, it can make also I don't know. So maybe let's make the question like that. How do you feel with the weight of the history?
Well, I agree. I mean, it's just not enough to sit back on those 400 years. Mm-hmm. It's just not enough. Mm-hmm. We have to move forward, and it's about making history, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that includes, taking a contemporary view at what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. That includes courageous curating, programming, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. also, believing in certain things that you don't know yet, mm-hmm. how this or that artist might develop in the future, but mm-hmm. it's about making a point in a way. Absolutely. And I also wanted to add on what we talked about just a bit before, in sort of including all kinds of maybe formerly excluded mm-hmm. Branches. Mm-hmm. I also see the responsibility to include again, I want to say more local mm-hmm. artists. I think what this past year really has taught us is that we can't rely on so many international visitors for a couple years, and it's really about time to reconnect with the local scene, say. Totally. And this has been the case. It has been the program, and this becomes clear through an analysis of the collection, mm-hmm. That there was a much more overlap, mm-hmm. say until maybe the late 60s mm-hmm. or so. And it's, well, just as a parenthesis, it's mm-hmm. also the moment when the art market hits mm-hmm. in, and mm-hmm. when sort of the global turnaround of the art world becomes predominant. Of course. So for me, it's really, I don't think I take a break on the 400 years, mm-hmm. but looking back is mm-hmm. also in a way looking forward to some extenses, and that is really something, well, that is working with a museum with a collection, really. It's really, that is always mm-hmm. there in a way, mm-hmm.
and when it comes to history and changing the collection, I mean, one of my problems is that observations is like, I'm not judging Kunstmuseum. It's like generally wherever I go in big museums are also not big museums. There is this airport system, like as a duty-free, there are 10 or 20 really big artists belongs to the art history, and you see only these artists, like Picasso, I don't know, Rembrandt, Rothko, Richter, and always the same people. And this airport situation that you go, you say, okay, again, this artist, etc. It's very heartbreaking for a young artist. That as if these institutions, they want to become a brand or something. Che Guevara was a big revolutionary person, and now is a puro brand. Einstein was a genius, but now is a lamp brand, So these important people also were very good, incredible. But if I go to, I don't know, Stockholm, Berlin, London, Tokyo, Istanbul, I mean, even also is, let's say, second world and third world countries, I'm very sorry to use these words, but to frame it, even though they open new museums, etc., they just want to buy these 10 artists to show that, oh my God, I'm also at that league, at that level.
Yeah.
And I think this is so discouraging for the contemporary artists, for the living artists, because also if we want to make a change in the history and focus on now, we shouldn't focus on the branding. We should focus on really, first of all, local artists, but also we live in a global century that I really repeat that again, from the clothes that we are wearing, from the food that we are eating, for everything is global at that level, everything. So also when it comes to history, I am personally very tired of the Western presentations. And I believe this comes a little bit, I mean, it's obviously the hierarchy, economical hierarchy that speaks. And also when we look at the collectors, they prefer generally to buy the artists of their own country, maybe, or the local or in similar culture. Maybe I don't know that well collectors, but that's my observation. I don't know how we can invite people to change this image, this branding image, and and also with the new collections, local is very important, but also at the global level, giving a chance to the artists from, I don't know, I don't want to give a name of a country, but let's say forgotten country. You know what I'm...
Yeah, I totally agree. That is such a boring development of, and I dare say it's maybe this late 1960s moment when that kicked in. And yeah, that is just one standardized canon, basically, that is marketable, that is no risk, but that is also recognizable, so it's marketable. So yeah, that is quite an uninteresting development. And I think, or and there are some good examples of colleagues who are complicating the narratives and who are finding ways of not excluding those 20th century heroes, but just giving a more colored image, a more textured pattern of what is maybe representative for a certain moment in art history, or also in history. You know, it really depends on how you tell the story, I guess.
Totally.
And also how much time you spend researching. It's a lot of work, and it's great work, and you have to be diplomatic. You have to convince many stakeholders. But I agree. I mean, that is not very interesting. And one thing that I'm also not interested is in sort of following a counter canon, which already has established or is in the process of establishing, which does the same but with different glasses, maybe. So it's really about recognizing the place where you're working, or where you put these works on display, where you bring these artists in conversation also. It's really about making it site-specific, and thus also, I think, giving an identity of why you would want to specifically go to Stockholm. And I think they do an okay job. There is so some national pride.
Stockholm, I mean, Sweden is really great.
But of just really finding reasons why you want to go there and not see the same which you could see here.
Like uniqueness and signature, you're saying.
Yeah, identity of the place, also history of an institution. Of course, an institution is also not a spaceship. It's you know, it's grounded somewhere. So this is something which I'm doing right now with this building. Actually, I'm doing. I've invited an artist, Ruth Buchanan, and we're doing a psychoanalysis of the building, basically.
Yeah. You use the word complicated, in making the narrative more complicated, which is exactly what I'm looking for all the time, because I believe in the idea of chaos and order. You have to be able to grow and continue in your circle, because it shouldn't become a repetitive scenario, this circle. You should throw yourself into chaos and not always staying in an order. And this branding situation is really about the order, like keeping it as it is. And complicating the narration is definitely like diving inside of a chaos, which is the most interesting thing the most playful thing, the beautiful thing about art, in my perspective. Yes, it's great to hear that. And there are two things that before we should unfortunately finish soon. We have like 10-15 minutes, but I have two questions. I believe we live in a very unique place, Basel. I think Switzerland, with its direct democracy, with its cantonal system, it's very unique, and people, they can really make a signature and votation and etc. And of course, the cultural capital of Switzerland is Basel, and so all these worldwide important institutions, they are here. And plus, it's a very small city. Everybody knows each other. It's very unique in the world. And with the direct democracy and the small city situation, as someone who comes from outside of Switzerland, you see a lot of potentials with this city, that it can become a role model. You know what I mean? Because when you were saying that you have to take care, I'm gonna make it in a super short way. Like, you have to know the history, you have to respect the place, but at the same time, when you are front runner in the world, you have to also have this responsibility to become an example for the world. You know what I mean? So that is one thing that I believe generally in Switzerland, not only in art, it is something very missing. There is everything that we can do. There is all the material on the table. But I have the feeling Switzerland doesn't want to be this role model for anything. Wants to observe if everything is safe and nice in everything. And then after maybe 25 years, they will say, okay, we can also do that. You know, but at least I believe in Basel, as an open-minded city, as the front-runner city in the world, I think we can at least become a role model here in the culture, you know? And what do you think about that? Do you see that potential that I see? Or am I too dreamful?
Well, maybe I'm too embedded.
Local.
No. Maybe I absolutely cherish Basel. I think it's, as you described, quite unique and very livable. But maybe I'm not. Maybe I should take a stand back, or should travel again. Actually, frankly, but there is a Swiss, and I just say this very generic, as a general statement. There is a Swiss timidness with anything above or below the norm, in a way, with excellence, for example. In this case, there is, people are are proud that universities are good, etc., and that we are such a fantastic institution, but there is no culture of excellency as when you can compare it to the United States, like North America, where it's all about competition, and excellence is something that is really cultivated and cherished. I mean, it's just really something that is not so much here, or when we want excellent, or I'm sorry for this, but there's a wish to do well, to do good, to perform, but maybe not, exaggerating, for example. And it became quite palpable to me when my daughter will go to school this summer. She will start school, and we get this leaflet, and yeah. There's just in the last sentence, it basically says, and if your kid is really, bored at school because it might be so bright, I'm exaggerating, then there's this where it can have extra information. It's nothing that it's sort of, it comes after all the problem cases, basically. And yeah, it's maybe an image for what you're describing, that there's that excellency is something that it's not so comfortable with, maybe.
Yeah, but at the same time, as we said, for the complicated narration, we cannot be excellent. I mean, that's what I think, because something complicated can't be perfect. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's too philosophical thing, because chaos, I don't know, because order is trying to going to the excellency, to the perfection. And that, I believe, it brings this branding situation. But if we really want to be the mirror of the world or the society, I believe it should be in the chaos. I mean, I know, I 100% agree with you when we look at the Swiss culture and this excellency, Swiss-madeness, this perfectionism, excellency. But at the same time, for me, it doesn't match with the culture, with art, with art production and the sharing the art. It should be unsecure. It should be, I don't know, like a baby who cries, not like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe I misunderstood you. So what you're challenging is that within the cultural sector of Basel, we
become a role model for the world that, hey, we take risks, we take risk, we are overing this branding situation, and we give chance to, I don't know, to totally different ways of not curating, but culture sharing, for example.
Yeah. But this maybe the word excellency was the wrong word, actually.
Yeah.
But it's maybe your suggestion of a role model is better. So it takes courage to be the role model, right? And I think being the role model maybe also has something to do with the self-esteem of, I could do better than others, in a way. So,
for example, let's come back to the post-truth a little bit, that we didn't talk that much today. I mean, we are obviously facing climate change. And I mean, it's in the middle of the February, it's 18 degrees outside, it's unbelievable. And one of the, again, with the role modeling thing, I was thinking to maybe Basel also can be a role model for the, I don't know, thinking about the climate change and about waste in the art field, or all these travels and etc., to become, to develop something different. That's why also, not only the exhibition making, but also for the transport, for the communication, for the travels, for everything, like much more focusing on local or etc. But how do you feel with the climate change generally in your life? How do you perceive it? How do you live with it? With you, with your family, with your daughter? Or at the same time, do you see any nice path that contemporary art and generally art institution and what we can do for the climate change, how they can go in the same path in a nice way?
Well, I'm super worried about climate change. I'm not at ease at all, and it's also physical. I have a very strong allergies, like hay fever, and it starts earlier and earlier. So I mean, that's maybe very selfish, but I'm worried about.
You are living it. Yeah.
In a way, yeah, or. And also, as you pointed out, of course, with a child, it's a terrifying perspective, yeah. And at the same time, what happens when you live with a child, you have to live politics. You can't just do the talking, otherwise you're just not credible. And so, I personally try to live with a very low footprint of carbon. But when it comes to the museum industries, of course, this is really just picking up now, and we see great need of acting here, and absolutely there will be, I guess there will be different exhibition formats if we take this seriously in the future, and maybe it is helpful and it adds to the complication of the story. And when it comes to contemporary art or artists, I think any progressive approach is needed, and it's certain that we can only do this together in a way. But
exactly.
But,
together.
Yeah.
It can only, I mean, with everything that we do with love. Obviously, you do your job with love. Obviously, I do my job, my engagement with love. So I think with everything that we do with love, and it's coming from an endless resource also. Love, I believe love is something endless. So we have to just share it, and be together. And if we can use the word of fight against climate change, we should fight together. But maybe in that case, maybe the institution, canton, has to lead a little bit also the artists.
I'm sorry I spoke only about myself.
No.
But
no. Your personal.
But actually I wanted to add, when you asked that question, that Canton Basel, and I don't have the numbers clear now, but wants to become a leader in terms of green city, actually. So that is like a mission of the canton. I think until 2030 or so. It's a very ambitious program, and many people are involved. So maybe you're sensing the right movement right now. Maybe it's just about how to get art together. Involved in that ambitious program.
It's necessary. We have to finish a little bit, but two things. One, do you have any question to me?
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good. It's a roller coaster journey, but I'm really, really, really good. I mean, I mean, maybe it's an occasion to share also because we talked about what's happening behind of the wall, in the sense of, I mean, it's my first solo show in a museum. It's something incredible, but at the same time, it was like you have your first solo show and you have 6 months, you know?
Yeah.
And congratulations, you are the winner of that prize. You have 6 months, and when you have this carte blanche situation, you have so many dreams, but 6 months is such a short term. And plus, making a book inside of it, and with the corona situation, as I told you before, I mean, during the last 2 months, I mean, there were nothing that I could buy a material or something, you know? So it was a really roller coaster journey for me. But I'm very happy with the result as well. Because in my life philosophy, I always believe if you give your best and let the universe decide for you, and I think that's a nice, helpful mindset. Because if I was a control freak, I mean, I don't know. But lucky me, I'm not that control freak.
Yeah, so congratulations that you've made
Thank
all
you.
this possible and with so much energy and diplomacy, I have to say, and also this on time for actually people who can come to the museum. I'm quite impressed, Dorian, I have to say.
Yeah.
This is good, yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And I would be happy to continue the conversation.
Yeah. But my last thing to you.
Please.
Do you have any wish in your life for yourself or for planet, for people, or anything for your daughter or anything?
Any wish?
Anything, something that you make a wish like
Make a wish. Peace and harmony. No, I'm sorry. But this is any wish. Yesterday I was confronted with a certain trait of character that I have, and the advice was just be less perfectionistic, and maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah, I think so too, because nobody is perfect, nothing is perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Maja.
Thank
for
you.
everything. It was a great pleasure.
It was fun. Thank you, Dorian.
Il n'est pas le tout bas, je vois la vie en rose.